I know you only have a little bit of time, so I guess I'd like to start with getting to know you a little bit personally. So, what inspired you to run for office?
Well, I've always been in an advocacy space. I started, in high school actually, as a volunteer at Planned Parenthood. I was in their theater group for high schoolers. It was called Positive Force Players, and we wrote our own skits, and we would go and perform them at high schools. And they ranged from everything we talked about, safe sex to even domestic violence in relationships. So that's kind of where I got my start. I had my daughter. I was a parent. I took care of her. Advocated a lot. She had OCD. She still has OCD. She's managed it quite well, but she really struggled, especially through her adolescence. But as she got older, she was doing a lot better, managing it a lot better, and we started just knocking doors for candidates that we believed in. And eventually, I became vice chair of the Orange County Democratic Party, which then led to a seat opening up in 2022 after redistricting. That I thought, this is my community. I love this community so much, and I think I'm going to run. And I ran, and I just really love serving our amazing district. It's super diverse. There's a lot of amazing people, a lot of amazing small businesses, a lot of fun. People come here to have fun, and you can really feel that vibe throughout the district.
So, as a legislator, I wanted to know what are some of your personal most important legislative priorities?
Well, when I came in last session, it was to defend reproductive rights. We ran a bill that would have repealed the 15-week abortion ban, but also expanding access to healthcare in general. I was on the ACA because my husband was a small business owner, and so we were in the marketplace. And while we were on the ACA, I we were paying $1,900 a month, and we were on the bronze plan, which isn't even a platinum plan. And so it really concerned me that even in spaces where there was supposed to be expanded access to healthcare, people were still unable to get the coverage that they needed. And I really feel like we're in a space right now where, we have a population that is aging. We have a population that is experiencing a lot of autoimmune issues. We have a lot of people that have pre-existing conditions, and they are pushed into a marketplace that is unfortunately not affordable for a lot of people. And we have to be creative to try to find ways that we can get access to healthcare, expanded so more people have the option to see a doctor when they need to see a doctor.
Yeah, absolutely. I think healthcare is super important. And do you find that fighting on a state level is harder than like what the federal government might be able to do, or do you think it's more important for the state to be involved in something like that?
I think it's really important for the state to be involved. Obviously, the federal government has its lane and its space, but states have that ability too. And in fact, I mean, something as simple as just, expanding Medicaid, like most of the other states have done since 2014, would make a huge difference in people's lives. And that's not anything that's like radical. I wish I could say or take credit for this idea, but it's been out there, and other states are doing quite fine. Even other states that are, have more conservative leadership, they still partake in what was set up a decade ago, and it's helped their constituents, and they're quite happy with it, which is why they have not been able to undo any of it. And I just feel like we could be in that space as well, just catch up with the rest of the country. That would be a great first step.
So, of some of the upcoming bills that are coming through the House, what do you think are some of the most important to support or be against?
Well, there are bills, again, I think attacking education now on, higher ed, and also in the workplace, kind of controlling what certain nonprofits can do in their workspace, like HB 599 is one that comes to mind, where they're calling it "Don't Say LGBTQT at Work." I find that incredibly problematic. Not only does it target a community, but it also is extremely anti-business. And in a state where we really depend on our economy being tourism and bringing people to businesses, we small businesses really do reap a lot of the benefits of our tourist economy. I think it is shameful that they're going to start controlling the culture that people can create in their own workplace. So that's one that people have been watching and talking about a lot. But there are also some good bills that I think, we need to uplift, especially as Democrats. We don't talk enough about the work that we're doing. And there is a health bill, there is a health care bill, and there is a Freedom to Learn Act that also kind of pushes back against this attack on education. And so, I think that, while we talk about the things that we don't like, it's really important that we talk about the bills that we do like. Of course, in our legislature, just because you file a bill doesn't mean it gets heard. There are states where that happens. If you file a bill, it gets heard regardless. We have to go through a committee process, and whoever the chair of that committee is the person who decides what bills will be heard. And so, unfortunately, these really good bills will probably never be heard in a committee and will never make it to the floor. But it's still really important that we talk about them.
Yeah, I think changing the conversation is definitely important. And I think going into that idea, it feels a little bit weird that in America we're passing bills that are policing speech. Like you were saying, I didn't realize that there was a kind of I guess colloquially you would call it the "Don't Gay Say Gay" bill, but that they're trying to apply it to the workplace. I didn't realize that they were pushing it outside of the education system.
Yeah, it also baffles me too. I have talked about the fact that my father is a dyed-in-the-wool conservative with a Ronald Reagan tattoo on his forearm, and
Wow.
I was always, I mean, he would always talk about the fact that the free market can decide. And if businesses are finding that, being inclusive is actually good for their bottom line, I don't understand why the state feels like they should stand between, what their customers want and what the businesses want to provide their customers. And, there's regulations set up to make sure that businesses are following federal laws and state laws. And I don't see why there has to be regulations set up on, if they choose to acknowledge someone who's transgender in their workplace, or if they, are an inclusive business, especially if the market is uplifting that. And it seems like that's what is happening. It seems like customers want to shop at places where they feel that these places are inclusive. And if they don't want to, they have the freedom to not go there and shop. I think that's sort of how it's been done.
So we were thrilled to hear about your support for our project. How do you think getting direct feedback on bills could empower the voters in your district?
I think that a lot of times people feel disenfranchised, and we work as state representatives to really try to bring home the fact that the further down the ballot you go, the closer you are to that representative. And so as state representatives, we they have a lot of access to us. I think that any way that you can make it easier to reach out to your elected officials and let them know how you feel, the better. We have, you can write your representative, you can call your representative, but now you have another tool where you can, reach out to your representative and let them know how you feel on something. And it also, I think, empowers them. It's like they are voting alongside us, and like they are also in session with us. I love how the platform loads the bills that are going to be on special order as if everyone is seeing it the way we do, what we'll be voting on, and they have the opportunity to put their say in. And I think anytime you give someone that power, it really brings them into the political process. And the political process shouldn't be a us, versus them. They are, voters, our constituents are the political process as well. And this really, I feel like, gives them that sort of opportunity to feel and be part of that process. And I am on the app myself. I vote. I see how people are voting. I see, how people feel about things. And it's also very insightful for me as a legislator to say, okay, yeah, I am, the way I feel about these things, I am representing my community the right way, because they are, when I check the results and I say, okay, yeah, that's the way I voted too. I am understanding the values of my community and representing them well while I'm up here.
I think it's interesting that you brought up that, like, when you see that there are people that are supporting the things you're already doing, it really kind of motivates you or helps you feel like you're doing the right thing. I think that's really important. Positive. There's a big positive feedback loop that can happen too.
Yeah, it's incredibly affirming. It's because you do wonder. I cannot go out and contact every single one of my constituents and ask them, how do you want me to vote on this bill?
Yeah.
You do your best to think about your communities, what their needs are, what they want to see in the state, and you do your best to represent that. So when you get that affirmation, it is, you say, okay, great, I am doing the work that I was sent up here to do.
So I feel like in my life, maybe I've been guilty of looking at bigger picture ideas more and focusing more on federal policy and the federal government and the laws that apply to the whole country. How do you think it's important to stay local instead of just focusing federal?
Yeah, well, like I said, you can, first of all, you can have access to your local officials. You know, you can be very frustrated with a federal politician. You can be very frustrated with the president. You can't, reach out to his office and schedule a meeting with them. Unfortunately, you can do that with your local state representative, and you can come to them with policy ideas as well. We ran a bill this session, the anaphylaxis in public schools, that was really, the passion project of one mom who, had a child with anaphylaxis who felt like there needed to be a little bit more consistency across the board, across the state, with anaphylaxis policies in public schools, and lobbied different representatives to see if anybody had an open bill slot, and we did, and we took that and we filed it. And that is something and really empowering, I think, for constituents to understand that you can reach out to us, and you can even come to us with policy ideas. We're only given 7 slots, so we might not always take it, but there's a real chance that we can have a conversation or find ways outside of policy where we can implement some of the changes you want to see. And I think that's incredibly impactful, and it's something that I wish more constituents knew. The access that they really truly have to us. All they have to do is reach out to our district aides or our legislative aides and schedule some time to sit down and chat. Most of us are really grateful to be able to have time with our constituents one on one and talk about what's really concerning them, especially when they come to us. So I think that's something that I really would like to, and I've tried to on my own platform, sort of be very available so people understand that they really are a part of the process, and in some ways they actually are the ones creating the policy. I think some of my colleagues have been really great about having contests where they reach out to the local high schools and they tell them, hey, submit a policy idea and we'll pick one and we'll run it this session. And I think that is an incredibly powerful way to get young people involved in the process, to help them understand that on a local level, on a very local level, you can actually be the creator of a law or a bill that will impact your state and your community in a very powerful way and in a very positive way.
I think that's a fantastic point. And accessibility, I guess in my life, I've always, as I've thought about solutions to problems and as I've thought about the legislation I would like to see passed, it does feel absolutely impossible to ever talk to the president or even get anywhere close to somebody who's even close to somebody who's close to the president, that he might even hear any of my ideas. And so I guess there's a kind of a then why try attitude about it. And I think, yeah, you're absolutely right. By being more involved in local politics, there's an accessibility there that may again create a type of positive feedback loop, and it might inspire people to get involved more and include other people and create a kind of movement. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So this project that we're doing, I mean, we really believe it's the future of democracy, and it's the best way to ensure that the American people have their ideas and beliefs represented. Going back to your previous point, so do you have any suggestions or ideas for how you'd like to see our project evolve?
Well, I'm just excited to get more people onto the platform so that we are really getting, a lot of the people in Florida plugged in, so that when I look to see who's voting, it is a lot of people. So that's really where I've been focusing. I've been telling people, go download the app, get signed on and start voting, so that and tell your friends about it as well. So that's what I'm excited about, and I think that's where they want to go with it as well, is really taking some funding and trying to build it up to get as many people on the app as possible so that they can have their voices heard.
I think the perception is that this country is so divided and we all want such different things. But I think really when you pull back a little bit and you look at the big picture, we all kind of do want the same things. We may disagree on like the details of how we implement those things or how we enact those solutions and things like that. But these are the discussions that we want to have through the Digital Democracy Project. So I'd like to talk a little bit about more about what's important to you and what are some of the issues coming up and what you want to talk about.
Well, I think next session, should I be knocking on wood, allowed to come back here if my community thinks I'm doing a good job and sends me back, I really would like to have a conversation about childcare.
Mm,
I was a young mother. I wasn't finished with college when I had my daughter. I wasn't making a lot of money, so my husband and I made a decision together that it didn't make financial sense for me to work. We didn't live near his family. I didn't really live near my family. So we didn't have like the family support of someone who would be there every day to watch my daughter. And we put her in daycare, but the costs were pretty much the same as the amount of money I was bringing home. So it was paying somebody to take care of my child without any sort of financial benefit,
yeah,
And so we made the decision that I would stay at home. And I feel like, for a lot of people, maybe that's not a decision that they want. Maybe they want to be in the workforce. Maybe they want to have a job. Maybe they don't want to stay home, but they are forced to do that, or
yeah,
they are forced to, or family members who may not be in the position to care, maybe not in the health to care for a young child, are put in a position where they will, so that the parent can work and not have to be forced to pay a really large child care bills. I think it's a really complicated issue. I don't think it's an easy to solve issue, but I think it's something that we have to have a discussion about, because it is forcing a huge population of people out of the workplace.
I
And
completely
right now
agree.
we're having a worker shortage, and there are people out there that would probably love to work and make money, but they simply can't, because to pay for their childcare costs would just not make financial sense to their
Yeah.
household.
Yeah, I think I know a lot of people who they are a two income household, but one of the income streams is just paying for the childcare, the
Yeah.
transportation to and from, and it seems like, well, then why do it? If we're surviving off of one income stream anyways, then we might as well just leave one of the parents at home to watch the kids and just survive off of one income stream. If you can solve the childcare problem and incentivize people to go back to work, and they're actually seeing a benefit from that second revenue stream, then that would motivate them to stay in the workforce. Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's a great solution. What would be some of the first steps that you would take to solve the childcare problem? Would it be like state funding for care?
Yeah, I think, looking at state funding for care, seeing where we can make those investments. And I really do consider it an investment, because while you're putting output into to funding or helping people pay for childcare, you're getting the dividend of somebody, working their way up in a company to a point where they're making more money, therefore putting more money into the economy. So, I see, sort of helping people on that back end when it comes to helping them pay for their childcare as an investment that yields
Yeah.
dividends, and not necessarily an entitlement that you're just giving somebody something. You're investing in workers, and at the end of the day, it will come back to the state, through
Yeah.
tax revenue. And so I think it's really smart, and it's supporting, like I said, a group of people that really would like to work. I love my daughter, and I love the opportunity that I had to be able to stay home with her, but I would have also liked to have worked. And the
Yeah.
reality was that when she was very young, that wasn't a choice. It really was not a choice for me to work or not work. It was a financial decision that was best at the time, because we really would only have been paying for childcare, and there would have been nothing left over at the end. And so it didn't make any sort of sense. And people, if they want to stay home, that should be something that they're doing out of choice. It shouldn't be something they're forced into doing. If they want to work, let's help them work, and let's help them, seek some of the benefits of working really hard all week, and seeing that, that made a difference in their economic situation.
So I saw that there was a I think it was Tom Keene had some legislative priorities around property insurance and things
Yeah.
like that. And I'm personally from Georgia, so I'm not really familiar with the the situation in Florida right now. I was curious if you could tell me what your perspective is on the property insurance and the increases in flooding and things like that, and what some of the solutions might be.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really important to our constituents as well. And in fact, I'm really excited that Tom he jumped on one of our bills as a prime co-sponsor. It was our Insurance Advisory Council bill, and we're told constantly that we need to listen to the experts. Well, then let's get a group of experts to help us figure this out. And so the council would be made up of different stakeholders, and they could help us navigate this. It's a huge issue, and it is also a multifaceted issue. There's many reasons why insurance is going up. We are experiencing, historic storms that we've not experienced, with lots of inland flooding that, places like, Central Florida, not experienced flooding like that during a hurricane. Usually it's just the coastal and intercoastals. We're experiencing a housing bubble, which is inflating, property values, which then impacts property insurance as they are insuring higher value, homes and commercial, buildings. So let's tap into some of the experts, not all of them in the insurance industry either, to help us figure this out and navigate. Is going to take a lot of different solutions to get us out of it. And I'm happy that Tom has kind of taken that on as well, and that he jumped on our bill to support, so that he can show his constituents that that is top of mind for him, and that when he comes back next session and he is able to file bills, so he wasn't able to file bills this session because he was sworn in after the bill file date. That, these are some of the things. Yeah, he wasn't able to, but he can come onto some of our bills, and run them as if they're his own as well, and create a message that he can bring back to his constituents, that this is what I ran on, this is what's important to me, and already, while I can't file bills, I'm helping colleagues with their legislation that will help solve some of these problems. So yeah, I'm excited for the work that he's going to do as well.
Do you think that from a state level or a local level, like we were talking about earlier, that there are real solutions that could be had that address climate change, or do you think climate change is a little bit more of a federal policy thing? Are you just a reactive body to the consequences of climate change, or do you think there's something proactive you can do at a local level?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I do believe that climate change is something that does, it's not even just a federal, it's a global issue that we all have to kind of come together. We're going to have to find a way to work together, because it impacts our entire planet. But there are things that we can do on the state level. Absolutely. And I feel like, climate, climate economy is actually can be very lucrative. Again, speaking to, the line of thought of, people who work in that space, who are always thinking about the economy, investing in, green energy, investing in companies that create solar power and create the solar panels, and finding new inventive ways to capture that energy so that it can be, stored, and so that it can be used in a much, more strategic way, is something that we can do on a state level. Absolutely. And I believe investing in it is good for our state, not just because of the impact it will have on the climate. And we are uniquely impacted by climate change, as we are surrounded on three sides by water, and we experience, these hurricanes and flooding and heavy rains, and we experience drought in the summer, that we have fires. We are experiencing climate change right now, and so it is really imperative for us to find ways to tackle it, and we absolutely, as a state, can tackle it. And I think we should. We are the Sunshine State, so we should be tapping into our natural, sunshine resource that we have. And I know that there are companies that are like, there is a movement in that direction. I just think that we should step it up a little bit, and in a more collectively kind of embrace it and lean into it, and
Yeah,
and see the
keep the
the
inertia
power.
in that direction. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
exactly. But we are starting, I mean, there is definitely more open dialogue across the aisle as well. There definitely is more of an interest in doing things, and investing in ways that we can be, moving forward into, clean energy.
Yeah, I didn't realize that you had fires. I hear on the news all the California fires, and the stuff happening on the West Coast. I didn't realize that Florida was having fires too.
Florida has had fires in the past, really, really, you know, devastating fires. In fact, we can have drought, and it's, we never really think of Florida as having a drought because we are surrounded by water. But we do have unusual weather patterns, and there are years where we don't have very much rain in the dry season, and unfortunately. We do have a lot of trees and green spaces that when they are dry, they catch fire. In fact, a couple of years ago, we had a fire in the Shingle Creek area in Williamsburg. I think it only lasted a couple of days, but it was a little nerve wracking for the people in Hunters Creek because we could smell the smoke. We knew there was a fire not that far away from us,
Wow.
and we were hoping that they were able to get it under control. But fire is a concern in this state as well. So we get impacted by weather in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, and it's funny. I had read something the other day that they were taking a look at climate models that had made predictions about what we would be seeing in the next 10, 20, 30 years. And they had done a backwards analysis of 10 or 20 different climate models. And it turns out that the top five that are most consistent with what we're seeing today actually had the highest climate sensitivity models, which means that the rate of climate change actually seems to be worse than most of the models were predicting 10 or 20 years ago. So I think as we move forward in time, climate change is going to become more and more of an issue. Do you think that that's contributing to the some of the property insurance problems too?
I don't know if fires are particularly, but I don't think it helps.
Yeah.
It definitely is one more, weather catastrophe that, homeowners have to think about when they're insuring their property. And climate is just, it's going to have a huge impact overall in our country. Climate migration is a thing that we see not just within the country, but we also see it globally as people move around as they lose resources and they're trying to move to newer resources. It's something that, like I said, it's going to take, it's a multi-level uh, problem that's going to take a multi-level solution, and it's going to be all hands on deck to try to solve this.
So, for one of my last questions, I think it's really important for people to be more accepting of the idea of learning new information and changing their mind on things, even on really large ideas or topics that you felt like you had figured out for years or decades. So, can you tell us about a belief you once held that you changed your mind on, and what convinced or motivated you to change?
I would say I believe I probably have changed my mind a lot or have become a lot more aware of different communities. I know my daughter was very much part of a movement where they were learning a lot about trans people, and I didn't really understand a lot. And so having conversations with my daughter really kind of opens your eyes to what people are going through. And it wasn't that I was ever against that community. It was just an opportunity to learn more. And I
Yeah.
really feel like when you sit down and you listen and you learn more about people, and you understand what their struggles are. I do understand. I didn't grow up wealthy, so I do understand the plight of people who are, socioeconomically, I, I think using the word oppressed is
Desperate,
appropriate.
challenge.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's so that wasn't anything I needed to learn, but I definitely see that that is definitely something that's still a big issue. And I think I've learned a lot about the fact that you really have to try to build a coalition of people who have a lot of things in common, but may not think that they do based on things that are more outward, but they're under the surface. There's a lot of common denomination, and you can find a pathway to get people on board for the same thing. And we all want the same thing, right? We all want to be able to raise our children and or live our lives, thrive, have a good job. And so that's also been something that I've been able to learn.
Well, we really appreciate your support, and we hope we get to talk to you again soon.
Thank you.